My name's John Eakes. So it's been a good show, 2 days. Twice we did construction work with the students. We got a lot of students here, a lot of other people. So we have a mixed bag this time around of housing officers and professionals and the kids that live in the houses. And hopefully someday we'll fix them and keep them going. So we're going to be talking about the Pikangikum thing, but that's only an excuse to talk about preventative maintenance, so we'll get around to that. First of all, Pikangikum, what is that? A year ago, IFNA and Mohawk College sent me up to Pikangikum, a community, if you don't know it, the northwest of here. It's on the ice road, so we flew in with all our stock, and we did a 5-week training session to 2 different groups of young people. Well, no, not young people, community people, because it ranged from 18 to 45. And just handling tools. Now then I went back again in all of November just because they decided I didn't experience enough cold. So they promised me minus 35 for February. So we went back, did all of February too. So it was quite an experience. And we were in a we had a community center gymnasium, but because it was the community center gymnasium, we had to set it up at 9 in the morning for our workshop and take it down at 3 for the volleyball. And so we were up and down, so there was no way to construct anything. And we had very little in the way of supplies, particularly little wood. At the first session, we came up on the ice road for the session in February, so we brought a lot of stock with us. But so with that constraint, the whole project was, we want to go up and get some teaching of hands-on of the skills of using renovation tools, particularly power tools, jigsaw, circular saw, impact wrench, drills, things like that. Real simple stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't have any projects to work on. And we did stumble into 2 decks that students had, one broken step and the other one was a whole broken down front deck. And you know, they're small decks, and so it was sitting on the steps and pulled away from the steps, and so they had a ski slope to get out of the house with rusty nails pointing at them at the steps on the bottom. And they lived with that for 2 years before we said, well, we'll go lift it up and do a temporary hold to get through that and get through in the winter. Interesting thing, when you analyze apprenticeship is always some mix of theory and practice. And there's a lot of discussion. I used to sit on the Canadian Apprenticeship Journal editorial board, and there's a lot of discussion about what is the best apprenticeship. Should the apprenticeship be half a week in the schoolroom and half a week in the construction site? Should it be 3 months in the schoolroom and 3 months in the construction site? There's no real consensus, and there's lots of good information on both sides. It was understood that you need both practice and theory going back and forth. So we were pretty well missing the practice side, except on workbenches in the gymnasium there. So that was constrained in trying to evaluate, was it a worthwhile adventure? What did we do? How far did we get? A couple of things we learned, because they wanted me to talk about lessons learned, was that I had very little local support. I was an outsider, flown in, no wheels, 104 steps between my motel room and the community center, so I could trudge through the cold 104 steps and get to work, and then trudge through going back for lunch, things like that. So I didn't really have a connection that I might have been able to say, can we find a house to fix something? When we actually go do it. So if you're doing a similar type of thing, you need to imagine some other access to the practical side. And my theory of throwing out a possibility of how would we do it again is you go up with 2 instructors. One who's actually got a certified license and liability insurance and all that stuff for actually doing work in Ontario. I'm from Quebec. And so one that's actually able to do the hands-on site stuff, and the other one who is able to do the theory in the gym. And then we could maybe teach 4 or 5 kids, send them out to something that's prearranged, to a series of small construction or small renovation jobs, send them out there, bring back another group, and sort of alternate continually. After they've worked in the field a bit, the field instructor could send them back to the class and say, we're going to be using a circular saw, get some training on a circular saw. So we'd do a day or two on a circular saw and send them back to the field. Some sort of coordination like that, a way to mix that up. Now, Ziggy, of course, is done. We'll talk about this in a minute. I got it in my presentation, but I didn't get your session this morning because I was working. But Ziggy has a true carpenter's training session in his community where they're actually going for Red Seal and other certifications. That's fantastic. Of course, it only does so many students a year, and it's long and drawn out, but it's the way to go as part of the thing. Why would we bother with anything less than certification? Well, it's because we've got a lot of stuff we need to do in the community and not many people to do it. And a lot of that stuff can be done with people with less than certified training, particularly if they're trained to know when to stop, when they're getting in trouble, when it's over their head. That's the hardest part. If they go in and fix a countertop, fine. But all of a sudden you're into a plumbing problem or electrical problem, they got to know that I don't know this, so I'm not going to do it. But they have some sort of resource feedback to get that part of it. And that's if we have a certified instructor with them, then he can either do it or know how to get somebody up to do that kind of thing. So those kind of developments there. But I want to go off on a bit more of a tangent, which is more of going into the lessons learned, going into why and training what. Now, Ziggy talked about that. If you were with this session this morning, I missed it, but he did real training, leading to professional accreditation. What is the use of basic construction knowledge and skills? What I think we got with some of the students there is at least 3 students out of 20 were interested in the trades. A couple of them actually worked in the summertime. I asked one of them, use the circular saw? Yeah. What did you get for training? Oh, the guy said, you see that guy over there? Do what he does. That was his training. Not a lot of safety detail in that, but that was his training. Just jump in and do it. And so what can we do is tease them into wanting to know more. That first step towards the apprenticeship, which is bother to go to an apprenticeship. Bother to apply, bother to think about going down to Ziggy's where they actually transported people south to a community that was equipped to handle a proper training situation and had something to build. That is the next step. But how do you get to that step? You don't just walk out of grade school doing nothing and say, that's what I want to do in life. So getting the hands-on, but then also the hands-on is tool functionality and things that are useful for maintenance and preventative maintenance. So I see the possibility of a lot of work going on in the community for that. But when we're talking about that preventative maintenance, for housing professionals, that's the last thing in your mind. Okay, maintenance maybe. I hear about some really good maintenance programs. I don't hear about any preventative maintenance programs. How do you fix the window so nobody's going to take a screwdriver or a crowbar to open it in the winter and then break the window and it doesn't even function for the rest of the winter? And then they break the glass trying to work with it. And it skyrockets downhill in terms of that. Preventative maintenance is simply learning that if you got those old sliders, you wax them with candle wax. And you wax the window, you wax the frame, you slide it a little bit. The frost will still come, but it won't freeze. It'll freeze, but it won't stick. And you can still open the window. Fixing the hinge on the door when it's just loose, instead of after the door is jammed and they busted the handle trying to get in. Okay? So if we can keep things functional, they don't get as quickly to a destruction stage. So let me change your mind about preventative maintenance. Later, I'm going to show you a secret weapon that you're ignoring that will actually immediately increase your housing stock. That's what I like to hear as housing professionals, huh? The magic bullet that's going to give us a bunch of new housing for nothing. And in fact, for no housing program, we can do a small increment in your housing projects. New research. Gail Lullard gave a webinar on January 21st. The reason I put the date up there because it was a conference webinar and it's on the web. You can go watch it. January 21st. Gail has worked for 40 years in the First Nations, and she does an awful lot of work about indoor air quality and health. So much of our First Nation housing, built to last 30, if not 50 years, is out of service, demolition after 10 years. They did a major study, and they came up that we were actually losing, in that particular study, 10% of their new housing stock every 10 years. It was losing it to demolition, scrap the house, mostly because of mold. Okay? And mold led to everything else falling apart. So what's killing the houses? Mold, wood rot, lack of maintenance. And part of that, connected to the mold and the wood rot, is the ignorance of the value of what we're now trying to call a fresh air machine. You as professionals all know HRVs, ERVs, and we've always talked to them like that. Gail's trying to start a program up where we're changing the wording, and we're calling them fresh air machines because people don't know what they are. She had one study, I think it's there, yeah. They had 100 machines delivered to a community. She went up several years later. 9 of them were installed. 91 were in boxes scattered around, some of them sitting in houses with just taking up space. 9 of them were installed, and about 6 of them functioned out of 100. And these are expensive machines, and we think we're doing something with them. Of the ones that are functioning, one of them wasn't working because the lady said, "Oh, I thought that was an air conditioner, and this is winter." Whereas the HRV, the fresh air machine, that's when we need it most, is in the winter, when the house is closed up tight and full of humidity. So we have an educational program to do on the fresh air machines. But we also have not only just education, what it is, how to do it. Whether you're in a First Nations community or in the rest of Canada, nobody changes the filters. Nobody cleans the cores. And it lasts for about a year, 2 years, and the machine's not, if it's functioning, it's barely functioning. There's not much air moving. So we as professionals kind of stick it, particularly in the new house construction industry. We put it in and then forget it. We're gone. And of course, it doesn't last. I remember the house I bought, the last house I bought, I'm in Montreal. I bought it from a scientist from the National Research Council construction section, and it was sold with an HRV. Well, I went hunting to find the HRV. I finally found it in the attic, on the far end away from the hatch of a low-slope attic. And when I opened it up, it was so rusty that the bottom fell out. And it hadn't been used in years. And this guy was a research man at the National Research Council Institute for Research and Construction. And he sold his house listed with an HRV. Okay? We actually managed to turn it on because I wanted to show it. And I got a little film. The 2 ducts came out under the soffits and pushed down. I got a film that shows the air going like this. Just coming when we put smoke in there, and we blew it out, and it went out this one. The wind took it over here, and it went in that one, and it immediately filled the house with my theater smoke. And we thought we were exhausting out of the bathroom. And no, it was filling up the rec room and the living room and the bedroom. So, and that was a guy who knows better. Okay? We got a lot of education to do on that. What we found is HRVs reduce mold in houses significantly. One study on asthma in children in Quebec showed a 50% reduction in asthma by just running fresh air machines. No other thing at all, no medical stuff. Just fresh air machines, and the kids gave up their asthma pumps, 50% of them. And the house is having the same breathing problem. And so what it's doing is collecting mold in corners and cracks and places that quickly make that house a gut job to try to get rid of all of that. So that's why I'm really interested in, let's look at something that you all know about housing stock, but I want to put it in a new light if this little fancy slide works. We want to build 10 new homes in a year. We want to see the growth of our housing stock. So down at the zero, it doesn't count for all the 1,000 houses that exist already in the community. We're just starting to see how much growth can we get with this new building. So whatever is your baseline of, you've got 400 houses in the community or 4,000, I'm ignoring that. I'm just looking at, if I'm going to build 10 houses in a year, in 1 year, I've got 10 more houses and 20 more houses and 30 more houses. And in 10 years' time, you'll find that that actually comes up, and I've got 100 additional homes to the housing stock in that community. That's the way we usually build our charts with CMHC, right? For the funding. And it looks pretty good. Now let's build 10 more houses. It's going well. What's going on the left? 0 additional homes because we lost 10 on the tail end. The 10-year-old house rotted out. The brand new house just took its place. We have no additional housing stock. And if we go on, that keeps happening. And we find out that because of the dropping away of housing stock prematurely on the back end, we're not getting anywhere in building new capacity on the front end. Unless you're building more houses than are rotting out because you're accelerating every year. But you got to realize that a portion of new construction is actually just replacing things that are dying every year as you're running along. So all of a sudden, we have 0 additional homes after 20 years. So we had the 100 additional, okay, that stuck, but now we're not adding anymore, we're only treading water. So if you go on, you keep getting that flat line, and you don't get this beautiful green line that was in the chart that we said we're going to build 10 houses a year for the next 40 years. Okay? Because it's just treading water. So how can we change that, at least in the short term? Now in the long term, let's say houses last 50 years. Well, the 50-year-old houses will be falling out, and we'll still be treading water. But if we make a change right now, where we're losing houses very quickly, we can actually, in a short term, get a lot of additional housing and catch up on our backlog of lack of stock by preventing the houses falling away. Aging of existing housing is a problem in every community, and we take that as inevitable, but we can actually change the aging. We can make houses last 30 or 40 years. And for the next 40 additional years, that new housing would actually be additional rather than replacement housing. After that, we get to the graph where they're still falling away 50 years earlier or 40 years earlier. But at least there's a catch-up point where we can catch up on our serious present lack of housing and get a head start on that before we catch up with it. Now we have houses last 30 years. Okay, we lose 10 every 30 years and we build 10 every 30 years. We're holding water at least, but maybe we've caught up with our major lack. So it is a place where we can get houses. And can we get them cheaply? It's actually cheaper than maintenance, because if we go to people in houses die early deaths because they're not taken care of. It's all about maintenance, but actually more efficient and less expensive is preventative maintenance. And you know this with your car, your truck. You don't change the oil, it's dead. It'll die on you. So you change the oil on a regular basis, it's not even a question. It's not going to die from an oil problem. You don't load your tires with air, the whole thing, the tire's going to pop out because it's going to get low, and that's going to wear the rubber, and you're going to lose the tire. You keep the tire at proper pressure, it'll last for the lifetime it was supposed to last for. Preventative maintenance is often very easy and cheap, but you can't do it as a big program because you can't go invasively into the homeowner's house and do it for them. You can't go wipe down the moisture. You can't go in day by day and force them to use the fresh air machine. So we've got to do some education about that, education about what those machines are about, and some education about what homeowners or barely skilled people, like the young people that we're training, what they could possibly do in a community and really be a major part of the housing solution. Fresh air machine is the single most important cause of sick houses and sick occupants in the absence or poor function of fresh air machines. So what is regular maintenance? It's not rocket science. You open the door, there's 2 screws. You flip the door open. You pull out 2 filters and you vacuum them or you brush them or you shake them off or you wash them. That's simple. It's easy, particularly if you've got a vacuum. You vacuum them, you stick them back in. You've got a core to do every once in a while, but maybe every 6 months. The core you got to slide out. No tools. Slide the core out. You do it in the outside of the winter. Do it in the spring and do it again in the fall. That means you can do it while there's garden hoses to clean them. If you don't have garden hoses, you do it in the bathtub and you pour water in them. And then you let them dry out. It doesn't take machinery. It doesn't take fancy soap. It doesn't take anything. It just takes the knowledge that that bloody machine is going to make your house last longer and make your kids breathe better and your elders breathe better. So we're really improving the entire quality of housing stock by paying super attention to a detail that we're already putting in the homes. All the new constructions that got these things. So we're already putting these things in the home. Now there's even a new version of HRV that you may not be aware of. And I'm even myself trying to get some details out of one of the companies to get more details on it. If you know HRVs, there's a problem. We've got to get air in and out of the house in equal levels. I used to travel all around Quebec teaching the installation of HRVs in the 1980s, long time ago. But balancing is a problem. They have now invented self-balancing HRVs, which means you put it in, you turn it on, and it adjusts the dampers. And it adjusts them as you go. So the filters get plugged, the dampers change, and it keeps you in line. So it follows your cleaning schedule, and it readjusts, which means we keep this whole concept that we want the same amount of air going in as out. And then the machine works at its prime. So that is something to think about when you're buying these machines. Why would I pay a little bit more for a self-balancing fresh air machine as opposed to one that we put it in and balance it right the first time? Well, it's never balanced right the first time, and it changes with time because of the filters and everything else. So self-balancing is a revolution in fresh air machines, or HRVs, and you people buying them need to spec that. Because I think that we're slowly getting to the point where we're understanding, and I get this feedback from several communities out in the prairies, is that they are now starting to say, let's build one less house than we would have built with the money we have, but let's put better quality windows and better quality HRVs in the houses that we do build. Because they'll last so much longer, they're worth more than just one more house. Because they're all going to last longer by taking the money from one house and putting better quality in the things that break down. The fresh air machine primarily, windows and doors secondarily. And from there, it's not as critical. Okay? So what are we going to do? Regular maintenance can be done at anybody at practically no cost. The filters, most of the filters are washable, so you don't have to do it very often. Changing filters occasionally is not expensive. I'm saying that we need to build a culture of functioning HRVs would be a major step forward. A culture, a cultural change, incorporating into your First Nation culture the idea of fresh air. There's nothing more natural and woods-like than that. We've brought you high-tech stuff from Toronto, stuck it up there and closed the door and told you to live in it. Okay? Now, why don't we go back to your culture where you could breathe, except we use the high tech to breathe energy efficiently. That's the whole key. That's what the fresh air machine's about. I was around before they were built. I worked a little bit in Saskatoon with the very first one made by Van E. And I actually built one myself. It was about this big and this large, made out of polyethylene and strapping. And it worked for about 2 months, and then we realized there's no way in the world we could clean the bloody thing. but we're really at the early development. And when we first started doing the energy efficiency back in 1980s with the big energy push, so even some of you older folks here were young at that date. That's the one advantage of being 80 years old. You can tell old stories and say, I've been there. But what was really happening, we actually had to stop the R2000 program, which I helped develop. We had to stop that program for 2 years because we were killing people. We didn't say it that way, but we were smothering them with our vapor barrier wrapped houses and no ventilation. Even Ontario only went halfway until a few years ago, where they said the HRV is optional and you just have to have an exhaust fan. And in the Ontario construction, it was a switch in a hallway someplace downstairs. And everybody said, well, I don't know. I've turned that thing on and off. I have no idea what it is. Oh, it's your bathroom exhaust fan. It's supposed to keep the house fresh. Okay? But then finally, the National Building Code came in and said, no, we need fresh air machines. We're going to have energy efficiency. You need fresh air machines. So the culture, what I feel is with the First Nations, it's the most natural move because it's bringing you back to your old habitation that had the advantage of being with the seasons, with the air, except now you have the comfort of heating without the cost factor because of energy efficiency, but that's never good unless the fresh air machine is functioning. We take the fresh air machine as optional, additional, extra, woof, it's something else. It's an essential part of energy efficiency. Otherwise, you're better off leaving the windows open. You breathe better. You'll freeze to death, but you breathe better. Okay? So, the skills and trades vary. Some basic carpentry skills for some complicated maintenance and repair, some simple and basic knowledge for many critical preventative maintenance tasks that almost everybody does. Simple examples. Lubricate the front door lock against ice jamming. I don't know how many front door locks I ran into in my little visit in Pikangikum, but 2 houses, I discussed it with the owners as to why their front door lock was gone. They were holding the door closed with a rope. Okay? That's where they're holding the door closed. And I said, why do you do that? You can't get a lock. Oh, he said, no, I got one here, but I'm not going to put it in because it just freezes up. And it freezes up, and I'm drunk. I'm not going to bother to unfreeze it. I'm just going to put my shoulder on it and get out of the house. Okay, that's what the guy told me. And so the community center, where I would go trudging my 104 steps from my little motel room to the community center at the safe house, and I would go, and I couldn't get my key in the door, or I couldn't get it out of the door. So I said, this doesn't work. So I went to the only resource that we had, the general store. They actually had a surprising amount of little hardware that was useful, but they had nothing for locks. So I called my wife and I said, I don't know how long it's going to take you. It ended up taking 6 days to get there, but send me express post, whatever you can, a little tube of graphite dust. Okay, it's graphite for the locks. Now, of course, I had to find it on the web for her. She had to go to the store, and the guy in the store said, that doesn't exist. She says, yes, it does, yes, it does. And he finally said, oh, I never saw that before, and it was on the shelf. But graphite is the #1 little squirt in a lock that has no liquid, nothing to freeze, and if you put your key in and work it, you're good for the winter. Doesn't freeze, the pins move, the lock goes in and out. There are lock sprays that are made for locks. They're called dry spray. What they really have is a solvent that evaporates quickly, and it leaves a little silicone behind. But you don't want to put any oil in. That collects dust, and the lock will die. So no oils. So this needs an education of just what you can really use. But if we can lubricate the front door lock against ice jamming, fix loose door hinges. Why is the door hinge? You're in construction. You guys are in construction. I can tell that. You buy a door. It comes with a frame. The hinges are screwed into the frame, but it's got to be shipped and handled so they're not long screws. They're 3/4 of an inch long. They don't even stick out the other side of the wood. And then you hang the door and you go away. Now this whole entry door is hanging on 3/4-inch screws in the framing wood. What you got to do is put the thing in, get it all set, then pull one screw out, put a 3-inch screw in. You really should do all 4 screws, but one at a time so nothing moves on you. At least if you only do the top hinge, that door will never move because you're screwing into the studs. But you got to train your guys to make sure there's a shim between the hinge and the wall. Because if the shim's not there, you bend the wood with 3-inch screws. 4 3-inch screws, and the guy goes crazy because he's up against a piece of metal, he can ram it in. Okay? But if you've got a shim right in the right place where it's supposed to be behind that door hinge, then it packs it tight, it'll last 40 years. If anything comes out, it's the screw on the door, not the screw in the wall. But they all come out because of that, because it's a heavy door and it's abused. But do you stop and do that? Well, the kids could go around the whole community and add 1 screw to every door, and you change the whole life of the doors in the community. So they just went, pulled 1 screw out, put 1 screw in, even in that small, and look at the budget. Not very expensive. Okay. Lubricate windows against freezing shut. Silicone could work, but better yet is candle wax. Paraffin is better because there's no color to it. But just wax the sliding window, wax the frame, slide the window, and it works. What about the crank windows? Crank windows, what happens is the crank breaks about a year later after you put it in, even if you give them a good one. Why does the crack break? One is because the window freezes up a little bit. So let's wax that window too. Stop the freezing. But 2, same problem. The crank was put in with 3/4-inch screws. So we've installed the window, we open it up, we pull a screw, we drop a screw right down to the frame of the wall. And we get at least 2 screws in that crank handle 3 inches long. That crank handle no longer gets loose. When it gets loose, it doesn't work right, you force it. Or you bang the window and turn the crank at the same time. So you want to really pay attention to those kind of details. Avoid mold by keeping an airspace between boxes and cold walls. You should really have a good supply of those little plastic mats that you use for walking on. I actually put them on the wall of my house where I want to put boxes up against the wall. It's less than 1/4 inch of air gap. The air moves. I never get any condensation back there. Where does mold start? A cardboard box against a cold wall. No airflow. The moisture is going to go through the box. It's going to freeze. Doesn't even have to be very cold out. And it's going to freeze because you got more insulation in the box than you got in the wall. And so that freezes to the wall. When they pull it out, it rips the drywall, and you're starting into the destruction of the house. If you can talk them into putting just lats on the wall where they want to put storage, lats on the floor where they want to put storage, or these fancy mats, just simple things or fancier things, but no contact between something organic and a cold surface, like walls and floors. It doesn't seem like much, but if the kids were to get the whole thing in their heads, whether they learn it at grade school or they learn it in special classes that we could maybe give them by the web, they learn that kind of thing, and they end up going around helping people improve their houses with simple little things like that. It makes the house last longer. Change air filters and clean outdoor hoods. The air filters are great. It's in front of you. I don't know how many houses I've gone to. I went to one. There was a contractor's house, and he had me over for a drink. And I said, "Can I do something that might insult you?" He said, Sure, you can do anything you want. I said, "Let's go look at your exhaust hoods, the input to intake for your air machine." There was no intake for the air machine. There were a lot of bugs, there were a lot of spiders, there were a lot of things, and a lot of dust, but there was no air at all. We turned off the machine, vacuumed. I actually made a point of it. We cleaned his vacuum before we did this. And then we vacuumed out both his input and his output. And then we opened it back up, and the guy was flush. He's a contractor, and he puts these things in. And this was his house. And he says, "My God, I didn't even think about it." And we want a little old lady in a First Nations house to know about that kind of stuff. We've got to communicate. We've got to maybe find young people that can deal with this kind of thing in the community. Great project for them. particularly if they can learn. Now, I promise you a secret weapon, but I need to know something about you and your friends. I've got all these young people here that I've been talking with, and of course, getting any First Nation young person to open their mouth in public is next to impossible, but they're my friends now. So I'm going to ask you, how do you communicate with your friends? What do you use? Facebook or what? What do you use? Chip chat? Is that it? No. Huh? Chat? Snapchat. Okay, because see, I'm ignorant of most of this stuff. I hate my cell phone. It bothers me. Snapchat. Okay, can you do pictures on Snapchat? Are there videos on Snapchat? Okay, what else do you got other than Snapchat? WhatsApp? Anybody with WhatsApp? Anybody Facebook? Facebook? A lot of Facebook. Okay, Facebook. Have you always been on Snapchat, or did you just go to that recently? It's always been that way? Ever since you were a little kid? Okay. See, this is a generation that can still remember when they didn't have this stuff yet, but barely. They just barely remember that. Okay? What else you use? Speak up. Same things. Snapchat and Facebook. I got to look at Snapchat someday. I don't even know what it is. Okay. Anything else? These are the winners. So it's not WhatsApp and it's not anything else. Okay. That helps us concentrate. This, my friends, is your housing growth tool for housing stock. Why? With social media, every one of these kids is a videographer with experience. You take videos, you post them, take videos, post it, take videos. Huh? You do it? No? Not much. Okay, two and a half out of 3. Okay, and you take videos, you post it. Okay, they know how to do this. We're not hiring experts like my cameraman over here. Okay? They know how to take it. They know how to do it alone. They know how to do it with 2 people or even 3 people, right? You can get somebody else doing something and shoot them. They are an entire production facility, and every one of your communities is loaded with these people. And you've ignored them as a resource. They have nothing much to do. They're looking for something interesting and useful. That's why they bothered to show up here to learn how to work with tools, because they wanted to be useful and they wanted to develop it. Well, now what happens if we start asking a bunch of young people to make Snapchat videos of waxing sliding windows? And they put it on Snapchat, but we grab it and put it on something maybe larger, because they're just Snapchatting with their friends, but they're producing for their friends. But then they send it to us too, and we add it in with credits for who made it. Okay, we want to get everybody in, so you get a selfie shot at the same time. And we start making this available to the entire First Nation communities of Canada. And we get it from all different angles and perspectives and window styles, because we start getting every community up and interested. And I suspect that you guys would be interested in competing with that with other people and looking at what they're doing in New Brunswick and what it looks like, and then checking it against yours. And then maybe a little competition, getting a better production, showing it better. We have the resources with the older folks to help show them what they should be showing. Content. You can show them the content. They can do the entire production. We have no government. We have no funding forms. We have no deadlines. But we have content development that can increase our housing stock by not letting it die so quickly. Okay? No government programs, no fine cents. So probably with the First Nations community that you just got a pamphlet today on that may be where we're going with this, is to have them set up something that can collect everything that these young folks can develop. I could be involved to help you. You send me your thing, and I say, hey, what you should add in is this. We show a little other thing. We maybe try it a second time, and we get it so it's a little more complete. But I think that if we unleash that production capacity, not only do we have something to teach the entire community with that's not a stilted video of some professional standing up there and saying, you should do this to your window because it's going to help, but it's kids that are excited. And they're showing what they're doing, and they're showing grandma opening the window and that she can do it. Okay? We can get that kind of thing going. All you need is unleash this power. Give them access to the knowledge, which is the content of their videos. So you may need to take local people and get together with them and say, you know, here's what we need is this. But you guys know how to do production. I'm not going to get on you. And let them come forth with what they got. And if we got some stuff that's wrong, we'll correct it, but do it gently. Correct it and showing them what it needs to be done to be right. Incentives. Why not community recognition for the best home maintenance videos? Prizes. You can do that easily. Make it into an ongoing community event. And every time that somebody can find, or you come up with imagination of another little detail that can be done, linoleum peeling up in the living room, you're going to start catching it and it's going to rip the whole thing off. How do you tap down the corner? Okay, we're going to put a nail in it. That's simple. But somebody showing that on a video that becomes widely seen because it's video made by you people with yourselves. It's not something produced by the conference or anything else. It's not formal. It's not me. It's not the professionals there. Get it published on the band website. That could become really a draw for your own website. The band has a website, but as I noticed, band websites are kind of boring and they don't move a lot. But if we have a section that keeps having a new video showing up that really could attract some attention, what I'm trying to do is we've got energy here with the young people that you're not tapping. And we kind of do things formally because we're used to CMHC and everything kind of structured and formal and getting it right. Going in the simplest area, now this doesn't replace your maintenance programs. It may push them off. You don't need them as much. But so it's not bothering, it's not involved in construction, it's not involved in heavy maintenance. But if this is done, the maintenance won't show up as fast. Get peer group recognition, find some way, promote the stars. We got one community that's got a real star video producer, and then we promote a different community star video producer. Maybe we have a contestant of the stars. The whole thing can be developed up, but thinking about the energy of the youth, the knowledge of not really the elders this time. The elders don't know how to build houses, but the knowledge of the in-betweenies, shall we call them. Between the youth and the elders, we got people who got experience, got knowledge, but you can't make a video that's going to excite anybody. You know, it's not going to work. They can. They can make a video that really gets people paying attention. Focus on, you're teaching on motivation. Little trick on teaching. Don't teach how to wax a window against frost. Shoot a video that shows preventing windows from freezing up. Okay? We don't want to just say, here's how you wax your window. I say, why the hell do I want to wax my window? Okay? But here's how you prevent the frost from locking your window shut. Oh, now I'm watching. So when you're making videos, what are you accomplishing with the video? Watch this. My grandmother opens her window with no problem. Would you like to be able to do that? Here's the secret. And then you show the waxing. She's getting into it. She's got 3 videos in her head already. Okay, this is good. Don't teach fixing a door. Well, this is really a door that sags. Teach how to shoot a video driving long screws in door hinges. That's the content you give to the kid, saying, we got to really show driving this long screw in. And it's only one screw, so you got to do it with a hand screwdriver. It's possible. If you got a power screwdriver available, that's of course better. But if we can get resources to them so they've got an impact driver and a bunch of screws, They can go around the houses and zap that in like crazy. And the community could ask through Facebook, who needs their front door fixed? Ah, we got a little team that's going to go around and find some incentive for them to go around. Give them the simple subject matter, challenge them to make the video. Don't build a program that has them submit videos and a form and a blah, and then they get approved and all this. No. Give them the stuff, let them run with it. If something is really done wrong, we'll spot it, and then you either, sometimes you might have to pull it down, but the best is you say, this video needs a slight addition or correction, and here it is. Or the person themselves remake the video and get it so that it's really showing what's right. So they don't make, I don't want them being afraid of doing it wrong. I make mistakes, okay, we correct them. But don't not do it because you got to be perfect. You're not perfect when you make a video with your buddy. You just shoot the video with your buddy. And that's what we need, that energy, that going forth. Support grade school and even grade school. I got to tell you a little story. Many years ago, Natural Resources Canada came to me and challenged me to make a video for third graders. Third grade, energy efficient conservation. Third grade. Okay, why are we looking at third grade? It's because the third grade are experienced enough in life to actually interact with their parents in a dynamic way. Okay, and young enough to be very innocent about it all. So if we could get them conscious of things like turning lights off when you're not in the room, not running the dishwasher unless it's a full load, all kinds of little cultural things in life, it would be good. So we produced a video with, first of all, we put the camera at this height, right down, it's all under the counter of the kitchen. It's like all the little kids, that's what they see is the bubble gum. That's all they see is the bubble gum down there. And in this video, we never see the adults. I'm there, but I'm cut off here because it's like a kid's view. So it was really made the kids. Doing that, the kids got into it because it was the way they see the world. So the cameraman was down here trying to work, okay? Then we animated a cat. And it was an interesting thing. This is the early days of animation. My son did the animations. He later went on to be so big in animations that he was in charge of Gollum and Lord of the Rings. But his start was this little cat. And we had to make it a black and white cat because colored cat was too tough for our computers. We didn't have enough computer power for color. So this is a black and white cat, but it was cool. Cats are black and white sometimes. That works. So this little cat would talk to this little kid. So the kid's down here, and the cat jumps on the counter and says, and then you talk back. So we covered his mouth all the time to talk in the ears because the kid wasn't really talking. And so then there was this conversation always between the cat and the kid. So the cat was teaching the kid energy conservation. So the cat would see a problem, and then the kid would go over and turn the light switch off. And the cat would follow Daddy, who turned on the dishwasher. The cat would look at that. The kid would come by and turn off the dishwasher. And so the whole series of the drip, drip, drip in the faucet and everything else, the feedback we got, they sent a VHS video that shows you, it was a long time ago. They sent a VHS video to every grade school in Canada. And they got a mountain of feedback delayed. It wasn't when they showed it to the kids that they got feedback. It was the first parent meeting. What the hell did you teach my kid? All the parents were like, what's wrong with the kid? He's turning the lights off all the time. He's doing this all the time. We knew it worked. We knew it worked from that feedback. We should pay attention to that because we can do that kind of a thing in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade to teach the basic things. And the real objective there is have them a little satisfaction. I know something that Mama doesn't know. And I can teach you, Mama, because it's going to be good for the economy, it's going to be good for the climate, it's going to be good for the house. And that's a value-added thing. But it also is the first step in going as a teenager. When I get big, what do I want to do? I want to be on the team that goes and fixes houses, that goes and cleans filters. And then as you go further, I want to get into construction. I want to get into renovation. So Ziggy's producing the real craftsmen. I want to produce the people that want to go see Ziggy and push them in the front door. You can push them out the back door. So that's my dream. And all the time we're doing this, and the kids, they develop self-confidence, improve the housing stock, improve the health of their family and friends. And by the way, if you have a kid in school whose brother or sister is on a push-push machine for asthma, and this kid might have a chance, a 50% chance, of solving his brother or sister's problem by cleaning the filters of the fresh air machine and making sure it's always working, that kid has done a miracle that everybody says is not possible. You're going to be on asthma the rest of your life. We found it's not true. 50% of the kids in that test in Quebec City got off the inhalators just by turning on the HRVs. So, and they think they're having fun while they're doing it. They just think they're having fun. But they're getting educated and acculturated at the same time. Making health go viral. Anyone who knows how to do something becomes a teacher. Anyone with a circle of friends becomes a broadcaster. People can work alone or in groups or in pairs. Kids can become community leaders. The web can quickly bridge communities across Canada. All of that increases your housing stock without big housing stock programs. You need those programs. This doesn't replace them. It just increases it, and particularly in the short term, because it stops houses from falling out of the bottom of the stock. Okay? That's my dream of where we can go with it. And I think these kids that we got here with us today have moved a little bit in that direction to confirm for me from feedback. I see some heads nodding. I see some guys that want to do some Snapchats and send them to me so I can see what you're doing. And if it ignites that easily here, imagine if it starts getting there, and then these kids in one community will actually communicate with kids in another community who are doing the same kind of thing because they start to cooperate and start to work with each other. This, to me, is channeling that energy that we all hate so much of people being lost in their cell phones. They're going to be lost there anyway. Let's put them to work and do something constructive. Create a community spirit and cultural community skills and new cultural value. Cultural value. Make a cultural value of preventive maintenance. It has no interference with your First Nation culture. It's in fact bringing back some self-respect to the culture, adding on more tools to that culture so that we have a healthier community to be living with and dealing with. So if we could get it so that it's taken for granted that people take care of their house. It's not taken for granted today. People don't take care of the house, but they don't have the education, they don't have the tools, they don't have the support, like with young arms that can actually come help them and help deal with it. I think there's a lot of hope and a lot of dynamics available in that. Thank you very much.